It's an opening night win for the BYU men's basketball program. They had some adversity, but they handled Villanova. AJ Dybantsa shines. We need to talk about Keba Keita and what he offered to the BYU Cougars. This is Postcast as BYU moves to 1-0 on the basketball season.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider, your host here on this podcast. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Special edition postcast here as BYU men's basketball opens the season with a 71-66 win over the Villanova Wildcats. And we call them postcasts for a reason, because it's immediate reaction in the aftermath of these wins, live, raw, unfiltered. And the biggest thing I want to take away from tonight's game is AJ Dybantsa had 21 points in spite of a pretty pathetic shooting performance at the free throw line. So there's a lot for him to work on in terms of his shooting free throws, because had he made those free throws, he's shooting, 30 points on the night tonight. And it's fun to watch him already show his star potential. I think we all expected this with him being the top-rated prospect coming out in this recruiting class, but we saw in the game before BYU's Koa Pete, who was also a top-rated prospect, Team USA team member of AJ's, show out as well. The freshman class in college basketball is going to be special this year. Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson, and AJ Dybantsa. He's right there among the best of the best. The other thing I want to get off my chest right at the outset is this was a game that BYU had to work for. That was good to see a team like Villanova, who is very much trying to get things off the ground with Kevin Willard taking over as a new head coach there in Philadelphia. He has a whole new roster of guys, and they made BYU work for this win. So that's actually a really good thing, I felt like, for BYU in this, is it wasn't just a cakewalk. They didn't coast to a victory. That second half, multiple times, Villanova took a lead and made BYU struggle a little bit. And they hit big threes. And I got to give Villanova their due, because they made the Cougars work for this. The Cougars are over at FanDuel, are 8.5-point favorites. So they didn't cover if you had taken the points there. But I really appreciate the fact that Villanova brought it tonight, and they showed out on a national stage on TNT, and BYU ground out a win in the end. The nice part was in the final stanza of that game, it was like, I think with the final media timeout, was like about 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go. If you go back and watch that final 3 minutes and 30 seconds, watch the execution from the BYU basketball program. That's the type of stuff that Kevin Young has been drilling into these guys for literally months at this point, is executing in key moments of games. And all of that work they've done in practice paid off in that moment, because they essentially ground Villanova to a pulp in that final stanza to earn this victory. So I really do think this was a solid workman-like win for BYU, but it's a big win over a name opponent. Villanova is no longer the national contender they once were under Jay Wright 4, 5, 6 years ago when they won a national title, but they are still a name program in college basketball. It's a Big East team, and BYU's got a slew of these on the non-conference slate. UConn in a couple of weeks' time, for example. They're going to have the work cut out for them, for the Cougars in this non-conference slate. But the most important thing was for them to open the season 1-0. Looking at the stats for BYU real quick, the Cougars shot 39% from the field. So overall, not an incredible night. 26 of 66 from the field, 29% from three, 5 of 17. Villanova, 10 of 35 from three. They came in intent to kind of do what the Mark Pope teams of yesteryear at BYU, hoist up threes and hope they went down. They also shot 29% from three. BYU 67% from the charity stripe as a team. That number will indeed need to go up, but conversely, Villanova even worse, 53%, 8 of 15 at the line. BYU 14 of 21 at the line, excuse me. But AJ Dybantsa, 2 of 7. So had he made the rest of his free throws, he's got a 26-point night, and who knows what might have happened had he been better at the charity stripe. Keba Keita, what a performance for him. 8 points, 4 or 5 from the field, 7 rebounds, 3 blocks, 1 steal. And I'm telling you, the box score does not tell the full deal of what Keba Keita did in this game. And I am sincerely hoping that him limping late in that game was not anything serious, because if that is a lingering injury, that's no good, because he was absolutely electric in this game for BYU. And I know that AJ and guys like Richie Saunders will steal the headlines, but I think it was Brian Anderson who pointed out that Keba Keita is kind of that left tackle. And speaking of the football parlance, that you kind of forget about, but they play a critical key role in teams winning basketball games. And that's what Keba Keita was in this one. So I really was impressed with his performance. Rob Wright III showed his star potential, his ability to take over the game. Now, there were stretches in that second half where Rob Wright seemed to be in too much of a takeover mode, a lot of dribbling. I've expressed that multiple times on this podcast for those of you who are everydayers about his over dribbling and playing too much ISO ball. I still want to see BYU improve playing with the pass. Actually, I said on the preview edition, I wanted to see how many assists BYU had to made field goals. So they had 26 made field goals, and their assist number was 10. Not great. You want to see more of that from BYU in terms of seeing more assists on those made field goals. But you take the win no matter how they come, because the biggest thing is you want to win basketball games, excuse me. I'm in football mode still, but you do want to see that assist total go up. It would have been a lot better to see maybe 15 to 20 assists on those made buckets, but it really did show BYU's ability to play with a hard-nosed team, because I don't think Villanova's overly talented in terms of top to bottom roster-wise, but they play hard, and they made it tough on BYU in this game. So credit to Kevin Willard. He has a team that's going to fight for time, and I really do think it was a good, solid performance for BYU to fend off an upset-minded Villanova squad. So I really do think, okay, so they said Keba Keita got kicked in the shin. That comes from Kel Weber. Yeah, so if you got kicked in the shin, that's better, but him limping obviously was of concern, because you don't want to see anybody get injured in a game like this, because it's a long season ahead, 30-plus games, and to have him get dinged up in game one would have been a really bad thing. All right, so a couple of things I want to see improve from BYU we'll get to as well. We'll get to your comments as well, so if you want to drop them in the YouTube chat or via social media, you can do so as well. Got some thoughts on what I want to see from BYU's now they look forward to their home opener against Holy Cross on Saturday night at the Marriott Center. We'll have more for you guys on that front momentarily right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Of course, FanDuel is here with the NBA is back. There's no better place to get in on the action than with our friends at FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks along the way. Keeps everything more exciting and every game more exciting, especially when it's your team making that late push in a game. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up today and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. If you want to get tickets to games like BYU basketball this season, the best place to do it is with our friends over at Game Time. And sometimes, let's be real, actually getting tickets to the events you want to go to can be the biggest battle other than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. And that's why I want you guys to use Game Time. It's the app that gives the advantage back to you, the fan. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. It's as simple as that. The best part is this app makes it super simple. You can see exactly what your seat view will be in the app, and you also have zone deals. Pick the section, they pick the seats, and you save money along the way. It's the fastest, cheapest, and least stressful way than any other I've found to buy my tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets and do it with our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Against the promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Locked On College for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. A bunch of you checking out the podcast, maybe for the first time tonight. Want you guys right now, the little thumbs up icon if you're watching this on YouTube, go and like it. And if you're listening to this after the fact on the postcast in terms of the on-demand edition, still click that like button. It helps the algorithm. And obviously, if you're listening to the audio format, please go subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get it, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and it feels like a gazillion other podcast platforms out there. All right, so looking forward for BYU now. The biggest thing I want to see from BYU is an improvement at the three-point line, and I trust that will happen, because when you shoot 5 of 17 from three, that number is abnormally low for a team like BYU that last year shot an extremely high percentage. BYU had guys like Rob Wright III go 0-3 from the field. Richie Saunders, who's been a deadeye for most of his career, just 1 of 4. Kennard Davis Jr., was 2 of 4. He was actually BYU's best three-point shooter by percentage. And then Dawson Baker, 1 of 2. So you want to see that percentage go up. And like I said, 5 of 17, I think both the makes and the overall attempts from 3 are actually low for what Kevin Young will probably want from this team. I would imagine he wants to see more like 30 attempts a game, but that partially goes credit to a program like Villanova for running BYU off the line there. Other things I want to see improve from BYU. I still see too much one-on-one ISO action, and the glory of last year's BYU basketball team in so many respects was the fact that they played with the pass and played as a team. And it didn't matter who was the leading scorer, it felt like in so many instances a season ago. It's very evident that Richie Saunders is going to be one of the big 3 here for BYU, but the other 2 guys in that big 3, speaking of AJ Dybantsa as well as Rob Wright III, those guys are going to hoist up their shots and they will create their own shots. That's kind of the difference between Rob and AJ versus Richie, where Richie, yeah, he can generate some offense if he needs to, but he plays much better in terms of being set up by his teammates. And that's what I want to see more of from BYU in terms of playing with the pass a little bit more and not so much one-on-one ISO over dribbling. And I'm kind of a broken record on that, but I do think that will come in time. I also continue to want to see improvement at the free throw line because I already mentioned it earlier. When you shoot 66.7% from the free throw stripe, and Richie Saunders 6 of 6 on free throws, but AJ Dybantsa himself 2 of 7. He had 21 points. He shot 50% from the field, but I can guarantee you he's going to look at that box score and say, "Whew, got to improve that." AJ, by the way, 21, 6, and 3 in his first ever college basketball game in 32 minutes. If you go by plus minus, he was plus 10. BYU's best player in terms of plus minus was Richie Saunders at plus 12. Keba Keita was plus 11. But really impressed with what I saw from AJ and his star potential. It's off the charts. And I'm not breaking any news to anybody when I say that because it's too easy to say that. And you're right. Ammon says this. AJ was laughing when he kept missing. It's one of those nights sometimes you're off and you're making shots otherwise because AJ, he was hitting shots like 50% from the field, 9 to 18 from the field. He'll take that every single time he goes out there because if he can score 20-plus points every single night for BYU, in addition to setting up his teammates, as evidenced by his assist, playing very, very good defense, I thought the one thing that he kind of gets overlooked on is his ability to play both ends of the floor. And that's what I really like about his showing is that he is going to get better from here on out and was pretty darn good for his first ever college basketball game. Just shows truly how great of a player we are going to be able to observe this season because we're one game into a 30-plus game season and hopefully goes towards 40 games if you make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. That's the good part about this. And I do think that looking at Holy Cross on Saturday night, by the way, if you're kind of planning out your day, you have a 10 a.m. Mountain Time kick for BYU and Texas Tech in football. And then after that one, in the aftermath of whatever happens, you can wander on down to the Marriott Center and watch BYU and Holy Cross play. And the Crusaders are obviously going to be overmatched. This is a money game for BYU for their home opener. But I do think it's a really good opportunity for BYU to work on some things, tweak a few things, and hopefully show an improved product even against a probably more overmatched team in Holy Cross. So really cool to see BYU fend off Villanova in this opener tonight. And I do got to, Cade Peterson saying this. Jake getting the sound bites on TNT, huh? If you missed that, they did a feature pregame. And I swear on everything, I didn't know that they were going to pull clips from the podcast and use them on that. And it's actually fair use doctrine. They can use those clips if they're under, I think, 10 seconds or 30 seconds, whatever it is. But I got to say, I was sitting there just getting ready to watch the game. And all of a sudden I hear my voice on TV and I kind of look around like, what just happened here? So, you know what? It was kind of a life-affirming moment. I'm not too big to realize that, like, you know what? My voice was on national television tonight. That was cool. I really do think it was it was a fun thing to watch that and have my voice used on TNT. So, okay, a couple good things from you guys here on the podcast as well. Agree to Brandon King. Off-ball screens were lacking in weak sauce. Yeah, BYU does need to screen a little bit harder in terms of making sure that they free up guys like AJ, Richie, etc., to make those hard cuts to the basket. Those are a hallmark of what Kevin Young wants from his team, wants his guys to cut hard to the basket, and that requires precise and sometimes pretty hard set screens. Keba Keita is capable of that. And I also got to give my some credit to Hadim Mboop. His versatility, I'm really impressed with it. And he can guard on the perimeter. He can play on the interior. He gets tough rebounds. He digs them out when it seems like he's not going to get them. I thought he was really impressive, even if his stats don't necessarily say a lot out there. So I do think that it is looking at it, BYU showed a lot in this game, but there is still a lot to be worked on as they get ready for their home opener on Saturday night. A couple of you already calling your shot on Saturday, by the way. This is interesting in the comments. Let's see. Where did I see this one? Oh, okay. So big flop. I hope so. First BYU game I am attending. Well, I can tell you the Marriott Center will be rocking on Saturday night. William right here. BYU is beating Texas Tech on Saturday. He's calling a shot for BYU football. Now, if BYU football wins on Saturday, you can, okay, I hate to say this. You might start, planning your trip to Arlington, Texas. I'm not trying to jinx anything, but they win against Texas Tech. They own a bunch of tiebreakers that could find themselves, even if they drop another game down the stretch. In fact, they only will drop one game down the stretch. Some of you corrected me on this. They drop one game, they're still going to the Big 12 title game. That's football. We're not talking football on tonight. Good point here for Big Floppa as well. Need to see Nate Pickens back. Sorry, I pulled the wrong one up here. Let's see. Oh, that's from William. Need to see Nate Pickens back, see if he can be the primary ball handler when Rob goes out. Well, Kevin Young already talked about that after the North Carolina game. He was actually talking about Dawson Baker being that guy, and Dawson Baker showed well, I thought, tonight as that secondary ball handler. I think that Dawson, now that he's back from injury, he's shown a lot, and I really do think that he's a crafty guy who just makes plays. And while it may not be flashy, it's not going to be highlight real stuff. All he does is just make winning plays. So I do think it's a nice showing for him in terms of being that secondary ball handler, but there is that opportunity for a guy like Nate Pickens when he's available to come back and maybe assert himself as that secondary ball handler at point guard. Parley's World. Jake, I love BYU. It's pretty exciting. It is exciting time to be a Cougar fan. Think about this. Both BYU major programs, both football and basketball, ranked number 8 in the country. Life's good out there in Cougar Nation. So, it's kind of crazy because you get a good point here with Big Floppa. How is it basketball season already? Felt like yesterday I was listening to Portland State post game from you. Hey, don't feel like I don't realize that as well. It feels like just yesterday the college football season kicked off and suddenly it's November. I say it all the time that the football season for me in terms of what I do in work and radio and this podcast, it's a marathon run at a sprinter's pace. It feels like I show up in the middle of August for training camp for BYU, actually beginning of August. And all of a sudden, before I know it, it's mid-December, bowl season's here, and it's kind of the holiday season. It's crazy how crazy it all pans out. All right, Hunter wants me to do this. I'm going to do it real quick. Plug the Insiders Group, LOL, well worth the money. If you want the inside scoop on all things BYU, another plug for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. The link is in the show notes, or reach out to us. We'll get you squared away as a member of the Insider Group. It gives you the inside intel that I've got for you guys. Come on your phone in the form of a text message. So, okay, good point from RJ Johnson. If the football team wins Saturday, ice cream on me if you come to San Clemente. Hey, if I get a San Clemente, I'll take some ice cream from you, RJ. RJ's also an Insider Group member. That's just another plug there. So, yeah, really I do think it was impressive. And I also probably should point this out. It was the Richie Saunders flu game. Before the game, Andy Katz was on the TNT broadcast saying that he had a stomach issue. Some speculated it was explosive diarrhea. You know what? Anybody who's thrown up and had a really upset stomach knows how difficult it can be to battle through that. And I'll tell you, watching Richie play the early part of that game, actually kind of the entire game, he looked pale. He looked like he was ill. So credit to a guy like Richie for battling through that. 6 of 6 free throws, despite those ailments for him. And he played 15 minutes, 4-13 from the field. So you expect those numbers are going to go up for him. 7 rebounds, by the way. Richie just, man, what an incredible player he is. Okay, Josh. He played an explosive game. Okay. You win. Comment of the night right there. Might be right there. D Rich, thoughts on Robert Wright III tonight? I kind of talked about it. I thought it was very solid. There were moments in the second half where I felt like he was in too much of a takeover mode, but I've said that multiple times on this podcast. I want to see BYU play more with the pass, and that's going to require him to probably sacrifice some of those touches and get the ball out of his hands. So I do think that Wright is very capable of taking over games. There's going to be moments this season where Rob Wright is going to probably, in many cases, win basketball games for BYU, but there can be improvement from him as well. So I do think it was a nice showing for him. A couple of asking about Dawson Baker. I already kind of talked about that. He's still working his way back from injury, but I thought very, very solid. So that's going to do it. I think I'm going to sign off for tonight. Full edition of the podcast coming out tomorrow, though. Won't be basketball focused because we are still in the height of football season because a huge game on Saturday, as we already talked about, against Texas Tech. Chris Level of Locked On Texas Tech and myself do our weekly crossover edition. We've got a crazy week ahead of us, so we decided to knock it out early. You'll hear from Chris and got some thoughts on what to expect from guys like Bear Bachmeyer, Baron Morton, our Texas Tech and BYU, the biggest two brands in the Big 12, leaving Utah in the dust. Talked about all of that, and we'll have that on tomorrow's edition of the podcast. But as always, truthfully, thank you for all of your support. You guys are absolutely awesome for checking in on these postcast editions. Like I said, another full edition talking all things football coming out bright and early tomorrow. We'll have more on the home opener later this week for BYU basketball as they get ready to battle the Holy Cross. I think it's Crusaders, but I like to call them the Crusaders. That's a hat tip to the Solid Verbal podcast, one of my favorite college football podcasts out there. But as always, truthfully, thank you for all y'all's support. You guys have a great rest of your night. We'll catch you guys again bright and early tomorrow right here on your daily podcast focused on all things BYU, the Locked On Cougars podcast. See ya.